Welcome everyone to this Force Friday. Today we are going to discuss how to take those darn boring references and how to plus them, right? How are we going to make more inspired, more forceful figure drawings out of reference that maybe isn't so great, right? There is quite a bit of that out there, right? There's a lot of reference out there, but not all of it is super dynamic or super forceful. And yet it's a shame, I would say, to not use it, right? So I think that's like the niche that we're after today is how do you take those kinds of poses and, like I said, and plus them, how do you improve them? And this is a great skill to learn because this actually not only for hobbyists, but if you're a professional as well, you might be doing a search online for a photograph of maybe a certain costume, for instance, and yet the pose that the character's in of that costume or whatever is kind of lame and you want to learn how to make that better, right? So that's what we'll be covering today, okay? So let's say hello to our other Force instructors before we get underway here. How you doing, Swinley?
Good, ready to help some poses out of boredom.
Yeah, a little more excitement in our lives. Right.
Yep.
And how are you, Mithunjay?
I'm doing good. Same for the same excitement in my Swinley.
Yeah. Sometimes I guess not to get too deep into this, but sometimes I think like, how did this happen? Why am I the Force guy? Like, why am I not the non-Force guy? Right? Like, how did this all occur? And again, most of you may not know this, and I only show it a little bit, but I really am actually a thrill seeker. I like dynamic things. There's a video of me skydiving on this channel, and I have one that I've been sitting on of me racing race cars, like stock cars that I haven't posted yet. Because now that my kids are older, I'm like, damn it, I'm going to do all those things I haven't done over the last 20 years that I've wanted to do. So I think it's sort of this odd, natural thing that I like drawing this way. I like drama. I'm not interested in boredom. And I don't know. I don't want to sound too harsh. I was going to say lameness. So there it is, lameness. I don't want it to be lame. I want it to be exciting. I want there to be drama. And I like drawing that, that's why we're here, right? And I think that's why you guys are here, right? You're here because you want to learn how to draw force and create dynamic figures. And dynamism, the idea of dynamism goes from ballet, right? So it could be super graceful dynamism to an athlete, right? Like real strength-driven dynamism. To even like, let's say rock climbing is it's not dynamic like, let's say, a boxer is, right? But it's dynamic in how the body works. And I love that. One thing I've always loved is seeing the human body under stress. Like how does the machine of the human body handle that, right? And I love going after that. I love trying to find that and figure it out and to illustrate that, right? And to experience it and go through it yourself whenever possible, Like if any of you ever go work out, with weights, try a session of doing that with like your eyes closed, and go slow and really like take your time with the weight and think about gravity. Let's say you're doing like bench press or something like that, right? Like think about that bar over your chest and how it wants to come down on top of you because of gravity and the amount of strength it takes for you to push that off your body, right? Like that, you want to build up your sensitivity to physics, basically, right? And I love that, I love all of that. I love how the world works. I like the physics of things. I liked it when I was driving as a kid. I used to always go out in like parking lots in the winter in the snow, and I had an old Trans Am when I was a kid, and I would do donuts and stuff because I loved the physics of feeling how the car would slide around in the snow. I used to love doing that, and plus it got you over the fear of sliding around. I knew how to handle the car, right? Because I knew how to purposely make it slide and control it because I would play with the physics of that all the time. So that's what we're here, right? We're here to do is find that drama, right? Make it more dynamic. You guys have anything you want to add before we move on to drawing?
I think it's also about like the process, like boredom. Why do we do art? It's like the way of escapism, from this like busy world, right? So you don't want to get like, at least for me, like I don't want to go into there and just like muscle my way through like oh, and I'm struggling with proportions and things like that, and just like do the art for sake of just drawing beautiful images. It's about I think it's about the process rather than the destination. But obviously, you get
Yeah.
something very good, when you're like excited to draw and when you're drawing that. And another thing would just be someone who's like doing that for you, like the model. He's like putting so much efforts, for you. And when he sees like a boring drawing, like I think that's like a L. So
Yeah.
they also get to see like this excited drawing, for them.
Yeah. I also, I don't want to get into a big AI talk today, but I know a lot of us are worried about AI. There's great things about it and terrible things about it, but the act of drawing is, as Mithunjay said, the journey, right? So even if AI does start generating a lot of art and it becomes part of it, maybe even becomes a job, right? Um, it's still not the same, right? I'm here today in my life and sitting here in front of you guys because I enjoy the act of drawing. That's very different than me typing in a bunch of words to create a drawing, right? I don't really get pleasure out of typing the way I do out of drawing. So I don't think that'll ever disappear. It's the same thing as like learning a guitar. I might be able to create music through the computer, but that's different than actually playing a guitar, right? So I think those kinds of skills, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing them entirely like disappear off the face of the earth. I think it's going to be, these are still things that are enjoyable physical activities for human beings to take on, and to enjoy the act of, of learning and improving on those skills. We'll talk more about obviously all this in our AI meeting, and I will tell you guys when that's going to happen. Right now, I'm shooting for about 2 weeks out. We'll see next week. I'll have more information on that. But so let's talk. Let's get to it. Let's get to drawing. I'm going to go first today. So how do we take more mundane or boring images and get some exciting stuff out of them, right? So here's the one that I was sketching in the thumbnail. Let's take a look at this again. I'm going to let's try the brush with some attitude. Right, let's clear out everything here. Whoops, new layer. Try to make this as big as possible. So for me, when I look at a pose, why would I even dictate if something is sort of lame or boring or not? And one of the first things that comes up for me is the angle of things. And one of the first areas of angle that I look at is the torso. So when I look at this photograph and I look at the torso, I see this. I just see like a straight line. And I'm like, right? Like game over. It's a boring pose already because the torso doesn't have much going on in it. There's no real change between the angle of the rib cage and the pelvis. It's just like a straight line, right? There's a little bit of depth because, we could see that her body goes away. So I'm aware of that. There's a little bit going on here in the feet at the bottom, right? Because there's a little bit of space. One of the most dramatic things in this pose, well, there's two. One of them is this foot. Foot's awesome, right? Why? Why is that exciting to me? Why am I attracted to her foot, right? I'm attracted to her foot because it's under stress and I could see that. And it's exciting to me because that's stress. It's on an angle. Notice the strong angle it's on. It's like this to this. So there's a very strong change that's going on there, right? The foot itself, I could sit here and just draw the darn foot, right? It's like, wow, the top of her foot's going like this and it's going into the ball of her foot like so. And that's exciting. That's a really exciting foot, right? I like all the squishedness that's going on in the toes over here, right? So you can see there's this going on. Notice this already has this angle in it. It's got this angle change, right? And I can push across those angles with these forces, right? I can get from here to here, and that is super exciting, right? But her torso, on the other hand, if I go and draw what I see, I'm like, well, all right, she's kind of like this. Her shoulder pops up a little bit like this, and here it is, right? Not very exciting. So I look at that. Number one, I would say is angles, right? Let's write that down over here. I'm very aware of the angles of things. And number two, and I don't recommend this at the start, but as you get through force, form, and shape, I definitely look at the shape of things. And the shape helps me with the angles, but I can see in the shape, if I'm really simple about her torso, right? The shape is kind of like this. I'm being very simple, right? It's like this. So I can already see there's not much agitation in it. Again, it's a very straight line, right? It's just not much happening. So not very excited about that. So how do I improve this, right? Well, remember the torso's got two more rigid structures in it, right? It's got number one, it's got the rib cage, so ribs. And number two, it's got pelvis, right? So what we want to do, I'll just tone these in really quick. What we want to do is take these two rigid structures and create more drama. So how am I going to create more drama? I'm going to play up these angles, and those angles will create a more interesting shape at the same time. I'm going to push her this way, right? Come out this way, like this. So now I'm going to have this angle compared to this angle. And that means now that I have those angles, that gives me a better silhouette, right? I just got more dynamism because I pushed diagonals into this instead of the straight line, right? This is way more interesting. And that happened because I pushed the angle of the pelvis and I pushed the angle of the rib cage, you see, like so. I can also then bring into this perspective, right? So keep in mind, there's three tools that you can play with. You've got force, you've got form, and you have shape. And underneath form, we have perspective, right? And volume. And then the combination between like form and shape also gives us scale and depth, right? A very fast way of getting deep space into a drawing is playing with the scale of it, how big or small things are. So I would say, well, I look at her, we realized from before that I'm in the photograph now. You can see I put that line there. She's curving away. Right, so that's pretty good, pretty dramatic up here, how far away she's going. I think that's kind of cool. And I love this angle on her face, like that's pretty dramatic, like her, we can see underneath her chin. So I don't really need to do anything up here. This part's pretty good, right? I like this angle is very dramatic, that's going that way across her chest. That's pretty good, don't need to touch that. So maybe I push more in the pelvis, right? Pelvis is kind of straightish, it's like this. And what I mean by straight is not, the angle it's at from left to right, like these angles we put in, but I mean, it's spatially almost perpendicular to the camera, right? So if here's my eyeball, right, and I look at her pelvis is almost flat. Instead, her torso is going away from me like this, right? So I would probably angle her pelvis away from me as well. So now not only do I have this angle here, which is going from left to right, okay, I'm also going to play angles in space, like towards and away from me, right? So that'll create a lot more depth. Then I move down her legs. I think I'm probably going to keep the stiff leg, and I might kick this out on a stronger diagonal, right? And that'll create more space across her feet. I might even be able to play with the scale of her feet because now I'm pushing the distance, right? So look at all these different things I just talked about, right? It's like every trick in the book is what I'm going to use to get more drama out of this pose. So we've got diagonals, we've got these shapes, the shapes get better defined by those diagonals, right? In the torso, which is the first thing I look at for drama, trying to stay away from a straight lined torso, right? And then I'm going to use force, form, and shape as tools to help me redefine this pose, right? And what's working, I don't need to touch. Her upper body, her rib cage, her head, the shoulder peeking up there, don't really need to affect that much. Now, last but not least, before I start doing this drawing, above all of this, what are the parameters around this, right? I would say the going too far is when this pose starts to fall and it breaks, right? Breaking the pose to me is it doesn't function anymore. And the function here is we want to make sure that she could still stand. She's still balanced, right? We have to keep that function going, okay? All right, so with all that being said, let's just use the eraser here. Let's just take some shots on goal here, see what we come up with. Kind of giving you a loose plan of what I anticipate doing. My main challenge is just going to be trying to draw small enough. That'll be the trick here today. Right, so now I've got way more push. We can get this going. I'm going to put this away, right? And I'm going to work fast first. I just want to get the gesture down, right? Some detail in here, but mostly just gesture, right? I want to get all this working. It's too low, so I'm raising it. I was here, and now I'm pushing it up, as you can see, right? I like that popped up shoulder. I'm not crazy about this arm. I'm not sure what to do about it either. What I don't like about this arm in the photograph is it's really just lined up with that edge, and it's very parallel to it. I like the diagonal across her body. I could diagonal it more. So I have two options here. One would be to diagonal it more like this. Right, like that. The other one would be to break the silhouette now that I've angled her back more and push her arm out here and then just kind of bring it into her body. Changes the pose a little bit. I got to watch that negative shape too. If I do that, I want the negative to be big enough to make sense. So that's better, right? Changes the pose a lot though, right? Like now I'm putting her hand on her stomach, kind of coming around the side, but I'm holding on to this hole here. So let's just try this one for now, right? So it's like this. Now what I would probably do here, I'm gonna grab white real quick. When the model is this bent, I'm gonna try to really push the apex of the rib cage. So that'll get me like out here somewhere and angle it a little bit more, you see? So I want that to pop because her ribs are gonna be in here. So there, she looks something like that. Let's just get rid of this. Let's knock it back a little bit. How's the chat looking there, guys? Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay.
People talking about AI, that it has.
That's all I had to do is open up the AI door.
There's no
AI.
people saying
People are saying what?
there's no soul to it.
Yeah. Damn soulless computer. All right, so here's like my first attempt, right? What I want you to see, the goal, of course, of today is just to see the drama change, right? You'll see most of it just came out of the torso, right? Just getting more drama out of the torso, right? Here, let's push this off. Let's try one more time on this one. And then I have a couple of other photographs. I'm gonna draw her really shapy this time, more angular. Oops. Let's put that flat foot down. I'm like, wait a minute, she has an amazing foot. What are you doing, Mike? Get that in there.
You can also push like an very strong reverse S in there, right?
Push what? Say that again.
It's like a very strong reverse S, from the chest to the rear end on her.
I could, yeah, if I wanted to push it out, I could, right? So this one's a regular C. To Mithunjay's point, this is a C. We could try a reverse S and see how that works. It's different, right? Which could be like that. Anyway, the point, like I said, of today is for you to see like what we would do to create more drama from photographs that aren't that great, right? That aren't as dramatic, right? So there's a reverse S, right? So here we're going from here to the back, basically. So let's see what we got. So this is the first photo, and here's like my different attempts, right? Like playing at it. Okay, let's try another one. And this one, and this one. This one's kind of similar, just the other direction. So let's try this one. FF, zoom in. Oops, did I create a new layer? No, new layer. Okay. So not so great. All right. So same problems, right? I look at this and I'm like, right? Like dead torso, right? Like not much is really happening. So how am I going to make that dramatic? I'm going to create a stronger arc in there, and I'm going to do it by creating more diagonal drama between the rib cage and the pelvis, right? So I want her to bend. I'm going to have her bend, right, like this. Now, ironically, almost the same thing I just did, right? But this is a different pose. It's more flat, but you'll notice the silhouette is almost the same, even though it's a very different pose, right? So I dare say, when you have silhouettes that look like, straight on like this, what you're looking for is like this, right? Or this, right? Ones that have got a stronger angle change between the rib cage and the pelvis, right? Pretty straightforward thinking, right? Pretty simple answer, but that's true. It's how it works, right? This one needs a little help in that I would push more drama in the perspective. So getting that roundness in there, right? I'd want this roundness over here as well, right? I'm gonna push more drama into that. Her legs, I don't want to change the pose so much that it's not this pose, but let's push it to get it crossed, but I'll cross it, wider, right? And put maybe a little more depth into it. So maybe it's like one foot's here and the other one, and the other one is further back, right? So now it's like this, you see? That immediately makes this way more dramatic. Can angle her head even more. I like the angled head, so I'm just going to push that, right? Arms are not so bad. I think that they'll hold up better with a more dynamic, more dynamic torso, right? But just putting them in here, you'll see, I think they're fine. Like how she's holding there. All right, so there's a quick first shot. But again, look at the dramatic difference, right? The huge jump that we go to from, from this kind of straight angle to moving to something like this, right? So that's where I'm going to leave off. I want to make sure the other guys have enough time. My 2 cents today, like I said, is it's force, form, and shape. I look at the torso. It's like the first thing I respond to in the model. I'm like, there's not much going on. Even when students come in with photographs, I'm like, this is such a great pick, right? Because torso's not really doing anything. You really want to find torsos that have a lot of bend and twist and turn, and there's a lot of angle change in them, right? To capture that drama. And if you don't have that and you come in with something like this, right, as a reference piece, the way to really get more drama out of it is to make that break between the the rib cage and the pelvis, right? And then I play with space. Legs are usually a great place to do that. You know, put the feet further apart. Play with the scale. You know, we can make this foot. You know, this foot here could be bigger, right? This could be like this size, and this foot could be, you know, smaller. It could be this size. You see, so all of a sudden we have a bounding box of this size versus one of this size, and that starts giving us depth too, right? So lots of different ways out of boredom. Okay. All right. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Swinley. Let me hand over some co-host control here. Okay, all yours. You should be able to take over the screen share.
Yes, I love taking over the world.
That's right. Hostile takeover.
All right, Mike, thanks for the awesome demo. So as you can see here, I was already warming up. So I picked a similar pose to Mike in that it's just a standing figure. Not the worst there is, but we can improve it, right? And pretty much like Mike did, my first thought goes to angles in this pose. You know, the main issue now is that her body is primarily just a vertical line. You know, this is all straight. Now we have some angle differences in this arm. Well, that's pretty much it. This is pretty straight. The leg is straight. You know, this is pretty much a straight angle. There is a slight angle change in her head, but overall, it's all very straight. So we want to bring contrast, right? As you know, contrast creates interest. So we want to start contrasting the angles and add a bit more variety, which will bring some interest to the pose. Let's get rid of this and let's start a new drawing here. So let's see. I think I do like this solid arc in the torso, so I'm going to keep that pretty close to what we have here. Now there's a bit of a tilt in the pelvis. We can maybe push that up a bit more. Now we can use the underwear here to get some structure in the pelvis. And then this leg, this is the weights, like the main weight supporting leg. So I'm going to keep it pretty much the same. I'm going to change the angle of her foot. Instead of having it pointing straight at us, I'm going to angle it this way. Now that's already starting to add some variety. And this leg, let's say that she's stretching out this leg. Now, like this. Now this foot is also closer to us in space. If we were to like map out the perspective ground plane, it starts giving us an idea of where the feet are in space. So this one is a bit farther back. This one is coming towards us. We can use some wrapping to show that as well. This is coming out of the page, and this is going down into the page. So this stage is important because here is where the balance is determined. So you want to make sure that for the most part in a pose like this, just with the torso and the legs, the figure should look balanced already. You know, she's falling here. Adding the arms and head is not going to save that in this pose. So let's get a center. Now I have compression happening on this side. And then we have the shoulder sticking out. And I think I'm going to change the angle of this arm slightly. Now putting it on her hips. Well, keeping things super loose and simple at this stage, just to get the gesture down. And once you have something that works, then you can spend time refining it. So I'm going to change the angle of this arm as well. Maybe it's placed here. And let's reduce this in size just a bit so the head still fits in here. I like the arc in the neck. We have a nice rhythm then between the torso and the neck and head. So the head would be up here. No, she has a nice tilt if you look at the angle of her eyes. So that's already a pretty dynamic angle. Like we often talk about, the most dramatic angle is at 45 degrees. Which this is kind of hitting pretty close to. Okay, so this worked pretty good. Let's see if there was anything else, any other ideas that I would like to try for this pose. Yeah, what I like the attitude. So this would be good for some refinements. Using our top here to show the direction of for upper body. Now we could continue and add our top. Just checking the length of the legs. It seems to work. So, okay, so this one is good to go. So again, notice that the main changes I did is in the angles. Now, whereas before we had pretty much just one straight line. Now the torso itself is bending, so we have this to this going on, and then it's changing at the head. So we have these angles. We have I slightly changed the angle of the weight supporting leg, so it's a bit more diagonal than before, where in the picture it's pretty much straight. So this diagonal, and this is a slightly different diagonal, like this. Now I change the angle of the feet. Now both are pointing in different directions now. I change the angle of the arm. Now the hands and the fingers are at a different angle. So again, a lot of variety in the angles, which again brings contrast and thus it creates more interest in the pose. Okay, that is number one. Let's tackle another one. Any questions in the chat, Mike?
Nope. Nothing specific. They love what you're doing.
Okay, cool. So let's see. This one already has, it's not that bad in the sense of angles. Like we have this to this. Now we have a subtle change in angles in this leg. This one is pretty straight, but it's okay. It's acting more like a pillar supporting his weight. The arm is pretty close to the leg. The head is pretty much at the same angle as the upper torso and the midsection. And let's see, this arm is going up. So with this arm, it's not so much about the angles. I think we can improve the silhouettes. Like the upper arm is very visible. And it's a matter of shape, like Mike talked about earlier. I want to bring the shape of the arm like more with this color. I want to bring this like more out here, so we have more negative shape in between the torso and the arm, and so the upper arm is more clearly readable. Like right now it's almost completely overwrapped by this guy's deltoids. So let's see. I like the bending action. What we could do is I could also increase the amount of applied force that is causing that bend, which is the leading edge. So what if we take the bending torso and we make this guy bend even more? Also he's bending more. Around here would be the top of his underpants. And using that creates quick structure. This leg, we could try to change the angles again. Now we could decrease the foreshortening as well, meaning that this is coming towards us a bit more. This is going down into the page. Also here would be the knee. And then this leg, let's see, we're going to just lift it slightly. And I think you can change this to a front to back, create a nicer rhythm. Now, so here's the front of the knee. This is also coming out. This is going back into the page. And whenever a figure is interacting with an object, you want to make sure to draw that. I often see students just leaving the objects out. And you have all these floating figures on the page. Now, the object is part of the story, so make sure to include it. See, I just want the center of structure, so I need to determine where the center line is going to be. And we have a bit of a twist going on even. So now the top of his torso is leaning more towards us. And then you have this arm. So with the arm, I could simply just change the angle and stretch it out more. So it's really like reaching out to grab something. And now it's going into the page, it's going down. I could change that and make it come out of the page towards us, adding some more depth. It's pretty close to this thigh, so I could try to do another iteration and change it a bit more. But I think it's good to go for now. I'm just going to add this arm. Again, bringing that upper arm out of the silhouette, make it super clear. And the head. So since he's going down, the head wants to go down in this pose. So since I'm pushing the pose, I'm making more of it, I need to make the heads go down more. So the head could be like maybe down here and really tucked into the upper torso. I just have to make sure that it sticks out enough in the silhouette so the pose still reads clearly. Okay, so I like where this is going. I could add a bit more of a ground plane here. It really helps to be aware of the space that the figure exists in. So you think in 3 dimensions and not in terms of a flat paper. Okay, that's pretty good. I just want to do another iteration and quickly see if I can change that arm. I want it to be at a slightly different angle than that thigh. So let's see what's possible. So what if that arm is reaching out and coming more towards us? So then we have the upper arm here, then the forearm gets wider and it tapers. And then you have the hands all the way out here, reaching out. And so I think this will definitely work. And it helps to add a bit more drama to the pose. All right, I think, do I have a few more minutes or is it time for Mithunjay
Yeah,
to...
you could do a couple more minutes.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Let's pick another pose here. So again, similar to the previous ones, the main issue here is the lack of variety in angles. You know, everything is just pretty much a vertical, and only this arm is actually, only the upper arm actually. This is also vertical. Now only this is a slight diagonal. The head is slightly tilted, but it's so subtle that it's barely noticeable. You know, so everything is straight. So we want to start moving things around a little bit to create more variety in the angles. See, so there's also bending torso. We could make him bend a little bit more. So he's bending, and let's see, let me handle the legs first. So instead of this being a straight line, I want this leg to point out slightly. It's a bit smaller, so it fits on the page. Just wrapping to help me understand which way the forms are going through the space. And this one, if you want to make it really dynamic, we could even bring this up right here. Now the knee would be coming right at us. And the gesture is almost like he's stretching or pulling a rope or something like that. So let's see if we can incorporate that into the gesture. So instead of this going straight down, I'm putting it closer to a 45-degree angle. And maybe there's like a rope or a staff, which is also creating a slightly different angle than the rest of the body parts. And let's see, I think I could arc his head this way, but I could also just make it a continuation of the torso and bend it this way, which I think might work better with the pose. And so this is going back in space, and this is coming back out. And this would also be coming out of the page slightly. All right, so with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to Mithunjay. Hopefully this was insightful for you guys in terms of how to make your poses more dynamic, primarily to adding variety and angles.
All right, thank you, Swinley.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Let's see here. I think Mithunjay, yeah, you already have control, so you can jump in whenever you want.
Yep. So I'm just going to share the screen really quickly, because what I'll be doing, guys, is I'm going to be drawing traditionally. Okay, so you can see in my camera, you can see like pencil and paper and everything in there. So I'm just going to show you the poses here. You can take some screenshots, although I have that one in here, as you can see in the and my phone. Okay, so the reference is right in front of me. So here's a pose, it's a great one, don't get me wrong, it's a great one. It's having a great potential to push, so I'm gonna do this one. I have this one pretty up straight. You see like the arm is like very straight, the torso holistically feels very straight. Okay, so we'll try to push that as well. I'm gonna be playing with some form here. You can see like the body's like turning away from us. So yeah, that is like a good starting point to start pushing this pose. And I have this one here. So she's sitting. Okay. I'm gonna playing with a lot of like squash and like foreshortening in this leg, and this leg is like pretty straight. So we'll see what we can do. Okay. Yeah. I have this one too, just in case. She's like leaning back, and there's like a pretty strong squash that we can play with, and the leading edge in here as well, as you can see on the other shoulder. Okay. So I have my references loaded, and I'm gonna stop share, and then I'm might look at what you can do is like pin. Okay, I just did it. Okay, great. So you can see my camera real quickly, pretty clearly.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm gonna be starting off with this printed up pose here, as you can see. So what you can, just like I said, he's like going away into space. This is like what the what is gonna be like the starting point. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just gonna be starting off with that. Okay. We'll see what we can do. I'm just gonna do an S pose for this one. Maybe I do like a small thumbnail, when you're like drawing this big, or you can just do it like make a small thumbnail to see like how we can push this one. Let's try it out. Okay. I'm just gonna be playing with the space here, something like this. And you see like how much like this like back part, that's kind of stretching out. So we'll try to play with that as well. And his head is like this. Okay. You see what I'm doing here? Like I'm like putting a lot of cross contour lines. Okay. And then this leg, I can like push out a little bit more. Okay, like this. Now with the other leg, we can just do this. So he's like more balanced. Obviously, we need to keep function in mind. So we have to keep the balance, okay, of the figure. And then I'm using the same old classic trick of what also like Mike also used this is like putting in like showing the difference between the size, okay, of the feet here. So of the foot here, okay. So this might be like big and this might be like small, okay. So yeah, push this pose in this way. Yep, looking good. Oh, by the way, the other hand here. I can like give it like a low rhythm to it, instead of just being like super straight. So that is my idea. Let's see how we can like push this pose now more. Okay. So as you can see, like his upper back is like pretty wide, okay, and it's like, yeah, like the pelvis region and like the core region is like very narrow. So I can like try to push off with that. Okay. So see how wide that is. I can like push down this part. I'm putting a lot of cross contour lines just to show like the depth happening. Okay. And then this part right here. And then this in here. This in like this way. Okay, pushing in that's this way. And then with the leg coming out with this. Okay. Yeah, I ran out of paper here, but okay, something like this. Now let's try to push it even more, okay, onto the other page. Just like really pushing into the depth here. So doing this, I'm just gonna push some more depth out of this. Look at the angle of the shoulder here. Okay, that is very cool. I've got to like show this as well. Look at this arm right there. Pretty big, like rear end. Okay. I'm gonna show like a small head so that it kind of looks like far away there. I really want to show this. Oh my god, I broke my pencil. Man. So I know it's gonna happen, so I have the one emergency. All right, I really want to show this like rib cage here. Okay, I want to show this like the hardness of the rib cage. Now, I'm not just pushing it like versus the like versus the form and everything, but I'm also like using a lot of line texture, to describe it. See this part right here. I'm jutting it out like this way. Okay, now the leg is like they're kind of come out like this. Okay, and the other leg is going to be short. Okay, this one. Okay, we'll try to like, let's say, let's try to do this one. Okay, we'll return back to it, if you get some more time, but let's just go with some poses here. Okay, so now this one, you see like how strong of a like the torso feels very straight, but the overall rhythm is like very flowy. So try to play off of that. Again, I'll try to like start with a smaller drawing this time. So, and this is like an S for me. Okay, I'm just gonna go. You see, I already created a much stronger diagonal here. Okay, like much stronger diagonal. I'm just gonna push this arm right here. This is it. I'm gonna take the same continuity, from the arm all the way to the torso. I created this stronger diagonal like this. I'm gonna keep continuing over this to the leg. So this way, and this is like my thumbnail right now. See, I already push in another angle into the strong leg here. And then I'm gonna push like one more, like very strong angle to the other leg. Okay, we see something like this. And I see what's really happening now. It feels a little bit off balance, because I push in like stronger diagonal within this leg. But as I'm like drawing the feet, this is going to be a little bit more balanced. Okay. To the limit you can push it. Obviously, you need to push it to the limit where just like before falling. Okay. What you can also do, for example, if this still feels a little bit more unbalanced, well, because we are changing like a lot of things, you can also do it like, oh, she's taking the support of the wall or something. Camera, you see, like she's taking the support of the wall or something. Now, once that element starts to come, we can say that, okay, now she's like more balanced. Okay, we can now I can also like take the other hand, maybe like twist it around. Okay, or something like this, and then like draw the head piece. Okay, anything in the chat, by the way?
Nope, it's all good.
Okay, great. So something like this. All right, let's do. I'm just gonna push it like this because that's a more horizontal pose. The other one, just gonna push it this way. Okay, right here. I'm just gonna keep it here. Okay. All right. Let's do this one. So you see, like now she's sitting. Okay. Again, look at the angle. The angle is like really the place where you want to start with. Okay, you want to keep the you just change the angles. Okay, it's gonna become like dynamic all of a sudden. For example, if I I can do it here as well. You see, like what for example, like the person is like this. Why like some poses feel boring and why some poses feel like dynamic to us is because it's just all about the angles. Okay, you see like the angle is like this, if we try to draw the legs here, you see like the angles are like pretty stiff. Okay, see the arm. Now just changing the angles of like just pushing in the angles into this figure, it's gonna give us like more dynamic figures. Okay. So see, I changed the angle of the rib cage. I'm changing the angle of the pelvis right here. Okay, let's say more angle change to the legs, that would help. See, something like this. More angle change, and more angle change. Okay, see, we just transform from this all the way to this, just by pushing the angles. Okay, All right. So that's what I want to say. Now here again, you see the angle. So I'm just gonna push the angle. So, and you want to make sure whatever you're pushing or you're just doing more of. So the effect is like pretty straightforward. So if she's gonna bend more, the squash is gonna become more aggressive. Okay. So just want to keep sure the function, that's something you have in mind. Okay, while doing this. Okay, I'm gonna bend her more. Okay, to like this way. Now, you look at like the weight that we are doing here, like the weight that I'm putting here is gonna be like very, very strong. Like, see, like the line weight that I'm using here is like very, very, very strong. Maybe I push her a little bit more. That's why I like using soft touch, because it's not like super definitive, I can change it later. So here I'm doing that. I'm gonna be giving her a really strong squash here into the stomach. Okay, so I'm just gonna I'm like pushing more squash into that area. Now obviously she's bending, so she is not being able to like put her hand like that. Okay. So maybe I can do this, maybe she's doing this and this onto her back, and that is gonna be like a push into the pose. And then yeah, doing something like this. Okay. So this is already like a much dynamic position, the torso. Now I can bring in this leg. We see like the leg is kind of interesting, already interesting. So it's gonna be pushing that one. Okay. So playing off with the foreshortening, I really want to push it this direction right here. Hopefully you're getting it, guys. Like what I was mentioning in the starting of the stream. This is all about like this is all about the journey. See how I'm like muscling my way in, it's like I'm trying to draw the pose, I'm like getting into it. Okay. This is like more about journey. So want to get out of boredom, don't just all of a sudden on a computer screen and just like keep on like moving your pencil with a light hand, like keep, don't do it like this, Just try to get up, try to get up, like try to get in that physicalness in your drawing. That could also be like a way to just kick the boredom out. These kind of poses, like you want to get like more dynamics out of it, these kind of poses actually require this kind of like physical interaction with it. Okay. All right, we are done. So hopefully you like it, guys. I'm just gonna hand it off to Mike to conclude the stream. Okay. Hope you like the part and see. Okay.
Thank you, Mithunjay.
You're welcome.
So what did we cover today, right? You could see across the three of us, we all talked a lot about angles, right? So again, just shows you how important angles actually are. There's some conversation about shape, right? So because shape actually starts showing off angles pretty clearly. And when you're drawing shapes, you're able to get angles into the shapes, and they help drive or clarify, I should say, clarify the forces. We also talked about depth, a few of us today, right? The idea of making things big or small. And one really fast way of getting that depth is pushing feet further apart. Anytime you have a pose where the model is staying with both feet together, that's such an easy opportunity to get more drama out of the pose, because you want to create a wider stance basically in the legs. That immediately makes things more dramatic. So in conclusion, force, form, and shape. Within those three buckets, you have angles, which end up creating more powerful forces because of the angles. And then, like I said, playing with space, playing with volume, and using shape as a very fast clarifier for all those different tools. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope that you go back now and go grab some mundane reference, right? Some boring reference, and see if you can take that reference and push it. And remember, the one thing you want to watch out for is just not breaking the pose so much so that it doesn't stand anymore or do whatever the actual main idea of the pose was. Okay. So have a great weekend, everyone. And we will see you next Friday. Take care. Thanks again, Swinley and Mithunjay, and we will all see you in a week.
See you
Okay,
guys.
See ya. Bye-bye.